Didn't we already do a Strangers in Paradise show?
Well, not a show. A couple of interviews.
It's come
Here and
up.
there. It's come up.
It comes up a lot.
Deserves it.
Tote bag.
Yeah.
Are we done after this?
We might be for a while.
Okay.
For at least a week. At least.
This episode of iFanboy is brought to you by GoDaddy and Squarespace.
Comic book discussion show from the website iFanboy.com. I am Josh Flanagan. This is
I'm Connor Kilpatrick.
over here.
And I'm Ron Richards. And over the years of at iFanboy, I've been very outspoken about my adoration of Terry Moore as one of my favorite creators.
It's come up in the past.
It's come up in the past. We talked about it. And luckily enough, you guys have enjoyed his work as well. While we've talked to Terry Moore at conventions. We've talked to him a bunch.
A lot. Probably more than most other creators.
And we've talked about Strangers in Paradise.
We did a show when this book ended. On
We
Chris.
did.
Yeah.
We did, yeah. We talked about Strangers in Paradise a lot. We haven't really talked about his new book, Echo, and so we thought we'd take an opportunity to kind of, as we, enter 2010 and to a new generation of Terry Moore stuff, take a look back at Strangers in Paradise, as well as look at his new book, Echo, and just kind of, for those of you who might not know about the wonderful world of Terry Moore, tell you a little more about it. So,
a little more about Terry Moore.
Yeah, exactly. So Terry Moore is...
This is why we don't let you title the shows.
That's good. I like that a little more about Terry Moore. So Terry Moore is he's of that class of independent creators that Jeff Smith and Dave Sim and that those '90s kind of indie
The 90s
cartoonist indie creators that didn't go to Image, although Terry did for a moment. That's the Jeff Smith, but anyway, who kind of had a vision and really did it themselves, the real kind of true DIY comics. Terry Moore, and if you ask him, as we've asked him in our interviews, dreamt of being a newspaper strip cartoonist. That was really his main passion, his main love, and that's really what he had kind of set out to do in the early 90s. Fortunately, that didn't go so well. And so for whatever reason, and honestly, I don't. In all the times we talked to him, and all the interviews I read with him, I don't know why he decided to do Strangers in Paradise as a comic book. I don't know how that happened. I know he was friends with Jeff Smith. He was a fan of Bone, and said, if I can't get anyone to buy my newspaper strip, I'll
at
just do
that
a
point,
comic
it
book.
was hard to break into the newspapers. You couldn't really just have a strip.
As opposed to now, where it's barely existent.
Well, even that was like the end of. But even then, you couldn't just break in. You couldn't.
Yeah.
There was
syndicates and all that stuff.
things.
Yeah. So in 1993, he self-published under his Abstract Studio imprint. Strangers in Paradise, a 3-issue little miniseries that told it was kind of a slice of life story of a girl named Francine, and it picks up right as she breaks up with her boyfriend Freddie Femur, and she lives with her best friend, a bit of a aggressive blonde named Kachu. And the first volume, those first 3 issues, was way more cartoony, way more comedic.
Whoa!
Yeah. Well, no, it dealt with relationships, and it dealt with, it was in black and white, written and drawn by Terry, but it was, very, very expressive, very over-exaggerated.
Cartoony.
Yeah, very cartoony.
It was,
Very Sunday strippy.
Very Sunday strippy, yeah, but in comic book format.
Right.
From there, he published a second volume, again under the Abstract Studios imprint, that ran 13 issues, that changed the tone. The book got a bit more serious and became more of a thriller.
Well, this is the point where I always take issue with people who call it a slice of life book, and I will say things that I like books like Box Office Poison or like The Waiting Places, and they'll say Strangers in Paradise, and I'll be like, Strangers in Paradise starts off seeming like that, but what it is, it's a crime thriller.
Yep.
It's like this big conspiracy thing going on. On the top, there's also a human drama. It's almost
romance,
it's almost like a nighttime drama soap opera thing, that you'd see on ABC.
Yeah.
Where it's like love lives and spies and government stuff and.
That was something I wasn't expecting when I first read it. After hearing you guys talk about it for years, and as a romance book, and finding in the first trade you get some international cabal spy story, and I was wait, what?
Yeah, I mean, basically what it boils down to is Kachu, the aggressive blonde best friend, turns out to have a very checkered past. She was a prostitute, and she
assassin hooker.
She worked for a group called the Parker Girls, which is run by this woman, Darcy Parker, and you find out much more about this conspiracy and how it's really kind of a underbelly power broker, make and break people all the way up to politics, up and down the ladder, and money and art, and the whole world of intrigue. Francine and Cachou are thrust right into the middle of it. Those first 2 volumes, while the same characters, very different in tone, really touched a nerve somehow. By the mid to late 90s, Terry Moore was a creator that people were really talking about and really kind of paying attention to.
And it was with the kind of book that once it grabbed a fan, once it had somebody on for the ride, it held on. And you can see this, Ron and I have made a point of going to, even before we were doing iFanboy, to going to Terry Moore's panels in San Diego every single year. Yeah. And you would see sort of the same group of people, who were into that story.
Very passionate about it.
Very, very passionate. Terry himself and all the people who read it refer to them as people.
Yeah.
Real people, and in a way that is just short of creepy. But
endearing. It's endearing.
Yeah, it is. And it's a thing about the kind of book that he created and the character and the worlds that he created really grab people.
Yeah.
In a way that I don't see very often.
Right. Such a connection is made, and while we mentioned the thriller aspect, whatever, the romance is it seems what everybody seems to remember. Stranger in Paradise has won tons of awards, including the GLAAD Awards and things like that, for its portrayal of the romance between Francine and Cachou, which a lot of people see two women, but it's not.
Isn't it all titillating?
Yeah, exactly. It's not cheap. It's not. I mean, it is a deep relationship, a deep love that these two friends have.
Well, it spans over how many years? I mean, it spans over 10 years.
Do you remember when the story jumped? In Volume 3, there's a time jump that was just like, and Francine got married, and it was like, and kind of life goes on, and this kind of requited love between the two friends, unrequited love, that between the two friends that you want to see, you want it to work out.
I remember you guys read it monthly, and every month there'd be some new. And you guys were just, you were deeply into the story. Ron, it made Ron cry in the train all the time.
Well, that was at the end. I mean,
but even before the end, it happened occasionally.
No, it was at the end we got pretty emotional because after Volume 2 finished, Volume 3 launched in the late '90s, and actually the first 8 issues were published in Image under Jim Lee's Homage imprint at Wildstorm. Only lasted for 8 issues, and they were full color too, which was weird. It's straight away from Terry Moore's black and white look. For issue 9 of Volume 3, he moved it back to abstract, self-published himself, stayed in black and white, and that ran for 90 issues. And that the whole story wrapped up in 2007. Mm-hmm. And that was a very emotional time period. That was the last, and it was like at that point it was on like a bi-monthly or every 6 week schedule.
They had told all the stories that they had to, and it was just a matter of him wrapping up the story. One of the things that Moore always talked about was there was a timeline that existed of Strangers in Paradise and everything that happens, and there was what all the characters, where they exist in it, how it is, and he knew exactly what the story was the whole time. Yep. And occasionally what the book would do in issues would be to go to a future spot in it, and then go back to back to something in the past before anybody, and everybody had their story to be told when it was. And so by the last 10 or so issues, everybody's story had been told, and it was time to finish things up. And that's where all of the emotions and stuff came out. And then
he had built up other characters like David, who was the brother of Darcy Parker, who was the woman that Cachou worked for, who was in love with Cachou. Casey, who was the girlfriend of Freddie, Francine's boyfriend from the first
series. But she
became
friends with all of them.
Yeah,
but the thing
Canby, Cachou's sister. Yeah,
it's a three character book. Yeah. We were just talking about Francine and Cachou, but really David is the other part of that triumvirate, and so all of that worked together. And one of the things that's really interesting when you were talking about how the fact that Francine and Cachou were in love with each other, but it wasn't like, ooh, look at girls kissing. Right. They never focused on the labels of those relationships ever.
They weren't lesbians. They were just two people in love.
No one ever used the word gay or lesbian. It was love. It was you care about this person and that made it very real because you weren't trying to define something. You weren't trying to make a political statement. Yep. You were just talking about relationships between people, and it defied categorization in that way that made it not end up as a political book, at least overtly.
Yeah. You know, it's funny that I really get that when I look at you. When this happens, I feel that.
Yeah.
Wait, before we get to that.
I didn't see that coming.
I've always heard of it as a 3-character book, right? Yeah. It's always been described as Cachou, David, and Francine. But what's interesting is on this omnibus, it's a 4 characters. He focuses on 4 characters. So is that because
I think that's just out of design.
This is a design
that's just
choice?
a design decision. Okay. Yeah, because Darcy, they added Darcy there.
Darcy's almost
she's the villain. I mean, and she's the villain of the story.
I was just curious because that's when I remember seeing this. I was like, why? I always thought it was a 3-character book.
Yeah,
really.
You can add Darcy in as the villain. But so the whole series at the end of the day ran 106 issues total. And it really, really connected with the audience, like we said. And so we're going to take a break when we get back. We're going to talk about post Strangers in Paradise life.
Thank you to GoDaddy for sponsoring this episode of iFanboy. Web hosting from GoDaddy.com includes 99.9% uptime, 24/7 support, and free access to Hosting Connection, the place to install over 30 free applications sure to help you get the most from your hosting plan and website. Use the code FAN14 to get any .net, .biz, or .org domain name for only $7.49.
So after 106 issues, he brings the story to an end, told all the character stories that there have to be, and like I said, those last couple issues were gut-wrenching to me. I mean,
not in a bad way.
Not a bad way. No, I mean,
in a way that a decade-long story that you're connected to
I've been reading
will
this book
be.
for 10 years. It was something I could depend on. There, yes, it's self-publishing, and through the years, some issues came out faster than others. There were longer delays, things like that. But it was always something like clockwork. I had a new Strangers in Paradise to look forward to, and the idea of a world without Strangers in Paradise, and then also the road to get to that end. I mean, there was a couple of times where I was riding the train home from the city, and like I'm sitting, wiping my eyes, and like the people next to me are like, "You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah." But and that's not even exaggerating. It's and the thing is that I'm not unique in that.
No.
Is that if you go to conventions and you talk to fans, we all have that same story.
You almost are out of the Strangers fan base.
Yeah.
It's almost as if your reaction is exemplary.
Right. Well, they're very, very, very dedicated fans, and it all had a connection to them. And what's fascinating about it is that much like Jeff Smith and Bone, which we talked about a few weeks ago,
previous
episodes ago, the life of the book after it ended is ongoing. So they started, before this series ended, they started publishing these little pocketbook versions, which were smaller size,
sort of
paperbacks.
manga size.
300 pages.
Yeah, those sell like they can't keep them in print.
They're bigger than manga. They're sort
thicker.
of in between comic book and manga. They're about 300 pages, $20-25, something like that.
Yep.
And I think there's 6 of them.
Yep.
And there's the whole thing in a set, and like that's as good. This is like DVD box sets sort of in terms of comics. You can get a big chunk of it. That first one, you'll get to know the whole thing.
Right, exactly. And I think the first one's got the first volume and the second volume, and then from there it goes into the rest of the third volume. They've been translating them into other languages. So Strangers in Paradise has been going all around the world. The story's been told, and these are all ways that, and when we talked to Terry at conventions, he goes to a con and he's meeting new fans. Mm-hmm. The book's not in print anymore.
Yeah.
And yet, I mean, it's in print, but it's not new.
He was a little ahead of the curve in terms of there's always been trade paperback versions that came out after the issues. As long as I've known it, that's how I read 80% of the series was in trade paperbacks going forward until I caught up to issues and then read it that way. But those were also deluxe hardcovers all that time that you could buy. This is before anybody else was doing it. And
early 2000s, he really had his reprint system working for him.
And they had a couple different versions of them as they went through treasuries and things like that, and then it culminates in.
Well, this was the rumor we've been hearing for a long time, right? When we interviewed him, he said they were working on an omnibus, and we all went, what?
Yeah.
And so finally it hit last year, was the complete omnibus.
After maybe 2 or 3 starts and stops, we're doing an omnibus, and then it was like, we're not doing an omnibus. And it's like, we're doing an omnibus, we're not. And then finally, in early 2009, they said and at that point, the last communication we had, I think it was on his website, it's like, we'd love to do it, it just doesn't work fiscally, we can't figure it out, we can't do it, it's not going to happen. And then maybe a week later, it's like, no, it is going to happen. And you can order it right now. And so I took my credit card to their website and I pre-ordered for mine, and we picked them up in San Diego.
It was limited. It's a very limited run too. It
was small run,
like 250 of them or something like that.
For that first run, the San Diego ones that they had. Yeah.
This is number 165.
Yeah, and basically this collects all 106 issues as well as the covers, a ton of back matter.
A book of covers, yeah.
Yeah. It's a great package, and it's still, I've seen it in stores. Like I saw it at Hanley's the other day, and you can still find it if you do want to have it. For any Strangers in Paradise fan, it's a must-have because it's just this great library.
There was a frenzy
edition.
when this. I mean, it tells you the dedication of the fans. Is when this hit, the day on the internet when this hit that you could order it. It was all over Twitter. It was all over all the different websites. It was all of a sudden everybody's going, "This is available, get it now!" And it was just everybody did who wanted it.
Yeah. So it's one of those creator-defining kind of runs that he spent 1993 to 2007. So that's 15 years on it. And so when he finishes it, then it's like, all right. So is this what we're going to know Terry Moore for?
Time to retire.
Yeah, but
he did a brief foray at DC. He did
stuff here and there.
Birds of Prey. He did some Buffy
arc.
stuff at Dark Horse. Yeah, but whenever he does other people's characters, it doesn't really resonate.
The Birds of Prey stuff wasn't good.
So we knew that he was going to have to do another creator-owned book if he was going to do anything.
Yeah.
And so what would it be? And then he announced, I think on his website, he posted an image of Echo.
Yep.
And that's what we saw, and we had no idea what it was going to be. And we're going to take a break. When we get back, we'll talk about that.
We want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this episode of iFanboy. We've told you all about how Squarespace is the place to go when you need to build any kind of website, and now you can manage your entire Squarespace site on the go with the new Squarespace iPhone application. You can post and edit blog entries, upload pictures on the fly, manage content, save drafts, do all of that kind of stuff that you need to do in the palm of your hand. Go to squarespace.com right now for a free trial and check out the iPhone app while you're at it. Make sure to use the promo code iFanboy.
Okay, so work with me here. Imagine yourself in a place where you've been working on this property and you have
15 years.
many devoted fans, and you just ended it. And what are you gonna do next?
There's so many famous second acts that are just failures.
Yep.
Just
It's
huge
a
fails.
terrifying prospect.
And I was so scared. I was so scared.
Right, because it's gonna. You were like,
I
what if
love
it
'em.
comes out? It's terrible, and you don't want because.
Or it's just a rehash.
Yeah.
It's just the same thing over and over again. Yeah.
And you don't want to do that. And I think that when the first issue of Echo came out, we all went, oh. Because we, like I said, we'd read other stuff that he'd done, non-creator owned stuff, and it was okay. It was pretty good, but it never felt the same way that Strangers in Paradise did. And Echo doesn't feel like Strangers in Paradise did, but it felt good.
Yeah.
Is the point?
It's a different kind of story.
It's a very different kind of story. It's a shorter. It's not going to be that. It's not going to be 15 years.
Yep.
It's going to be.
It's like 3 or 4.
He knows where he's working
Yeah.
towards the end.
It's a short, like 3 or 4 year story.
And it's a science fiction story.
Pretty much. Science fiction.
It's X-Files. He always mentions it's
conspiracy.
him doing X-Files. It's very much like that. It's the first book. I didn't read Strangers in Paradise in issues. I read Echo in issues for a while until I switched to these trades. But it's the first one I kept up with on a 6-week schedule.
At a high level, because he's still doing issues every 6 weeks, so you can pick it up. They've got 3 trades. We got them here. You can pick them up to catch up. It's really easy to catch up on. The story revolves around this photographer, Julie, who is out just taking pictures.
Well, there's an explosion in the
Yeah.
sky. She looks up. It's this viscous metal starts raining out of the sky, lands on her.
And
Part of it lands on her.
Forms this breastplate, which she finds out has powers. It's kind of defensive powers.
It was an experimental metal suit that they were testing, and it blew up.
Yep.
And part of it landed on her, and the consciousness of the person in the suit is in her, and it's all.
And as you go on, there's a lot more details about everything behind it that went wrong, the people behind it,
the government aspect of it.
People come after her.
You find out about her life and her divorce and her relationship. She meets this guy, this ranger who helps her, and it's that way of Terry Moore's earnestness of telling a story, of giving you characters that you can relate to, that you feel as if you could know in everyday life, and then watch them form relationships with other people who you would know.
Yep.
And but all with this backdrop of being on the run.
On the road,
yeah.
a conspiracy of factors, fear, a lot of power. There's a lot of things he's exploring in this that are not in Strangers in Paradise. It also feels a lot more linear than Strangers in Paradise did, because it is.
Yeah, exactly. And the book is it was a total surprise to me, and I didn't expect it to be. And more recently, in the issues that it's not in the trade yet, but in the 4th trade, it starts explaining some of the science behind it, and it's really thought out, and it's really smart. Quantum physics and things that I have a hard time wrapping my head around. I'm very impressed at, and Terry goes into it so deeply. It's even ingrained in the layout of the pages of the whole mathematics of what he's doing in the series, and it's honestly amazing.
I love it. I think his strength is character work.
Yeah.
And I know I've definitely picked it as a pick of the week on iFanboy.com. I don't remember if you guys have or not, but which is surprising.
Yeah, because you're.
Because I'm what? Finish your sentence.
You're the least fan of him.
I thought it was going to be much more derogatory. He's a great way of just getting you into these characters, and you feel like you know Julie, and you feel like you know all of her plights. And the issue I picked, I remember it was they were on the road with the guy, and they're just starting to figure out the breastplate, and they're doing that the bicker banter, we really attract to each other thing, but not overtly. Mm-hmm. And he does a great job of of getting you into their heads and making you feel like what they're feeling.
Yeah.
And his art, which we're going to talk about, is just fantastic.
Well, art-wise, I mean, if you look at Strangers in Paradise and Echo, if you take away the word blue and hold them up next to it, it's his style.
Yeah.
He didn't radically change his style for Echo. He's very, it's still cartoony. It's not really, it's not photorealistic, but it's lifelike.
One of the things that I've always said is that he's a cartoonist in the sense that he's very good at evoking expressions.
Yep.
His facial expressions are, I think, one of the best things that he does. And that's a way to have his characters act. His characters act very well.
Yep.
He's not a guy who's going to have very extreme layouts. And
No,
things like that.
it's a lot of medium close-ups and medium shots, and it's not usually very straightforward, at least in Echo.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of canted angles or crazy Neil Adams page layouts, but it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
And that's his strength. Is you said is the facial expressions and the acting from the. I think he's one of the best artists in working comics.
Yeah,
Just because he's not necessarily innovative, but he's very good at what he does.
Yeah.
He's a good storyteller.
Yeah.
Above all, and I think that if the one thing that has been carried through from Strangers into Echo is that, and I don't even want to say he's improving because it's sort of been good all along. It just works.
It's solid.
Yeah.
It's solid.
It's very solid.
Yeah.
And he's good at drawing. He's good at drawing pretty girls.
Yep.
He makes girls look sexy.
But also
not
real.
Realistic girls.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but not in such a way that's lascivious. It's not like, we'll say one of the JLA covers. We'll just go back
Right.
to where
Well, they have bodies that would fit their internal organs.
That's the whole thing with
They don't have waists that are this big. And
Strangers in Paradise got so much attention by a lot of the like kind of women's groups and stuff like that is because portrayal of Francine, like she's a little overweight and dresses fit the way they really like. He draws dresses on a woman the way they would fit in real life.
there's a little bit of bunching here
Yeah,
and there.
exactly.
It's just, the people look real. They're good-looking people, but they look like real people.
That's why I want to say it's not a photorealistic style, but it's a lifelike style.
It's totally
it's
lifelike,
it's the clearest window into a real life comic, and I think that's why when people say they want comics about real life, I recommend Strangers in Paradise because it is like watching real life, although it's these extreme kind of science fiction or thriller kind of stories. So, but it's just amazing what he's been able to do with these two titles over the span of about 15 plus years.
I would almost venture to say that Echo's more impressive than Strangers in Paradise because he had the pressure of Strangers in Paradise on him to follow it, and the fact that it's that good is almost a more impressive feat than the 15 years, which is impressive in and of itself. But anytime you follow up a classic story or a classic album or a classic film, how many filmmakers, musicians have just faltered under the pressure of their second act? Yeah, and he's pulled it off.
And it's been great. And when we talked to Terry in San Diego, he informed us that Echo, the movie, has not been optioned and bought. So that it's not like one of these things like, oh, there's attention. Like there are people getting ready to make Echo into a movie, which is going to be fun and great to see his kind of already storytelling be transferred into the film kind of.
It's just interesting because one of the highlights of his panel each year over the years, I literally think I've done like 10 of them. Was where's Strangers in Paradise at in the development process because.
Didn't he sell the rights a long time ago?
Many times. Over the years, a lot of people have tried and failed to adapt Strangers in Paradise, and part of it was that it didn't work for whatever format it was going to be. Part of it was that Terry didn't want to do it because he got closer and closer with the material as he went on. At one point they were going to do an HBO series. At one point they were going to do or something like that.
Yeah.
At one point they were going to do an animated series. Was it going to be a feature film? Was it going to be on the WB? It never worked out, and I know I can read the story. Having read it, I know why it didn't work out. It's not going to work out.
It's hard. Yeah. I'm glad, and I don't want them to.
I kind of don't either.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if they did, you'd be there every Monday at 8 o'clock.
So support them. Yeah, that'd be fun. But
it wouldn't capture it, I don't think.
Yeah. So if you haven't ventured into the world of Terry Moore, really, Echo's a great place too. If you want a long epic that people always want, they want a story that finishes. Strangers in Paradise is a great option. The pocket books are a great way to get them.
And I would say that if your only experience with Moore is some of the DC and Marvel stuff he did, that's probably not a great representation of it. It's not necessarily as bad, but if you
but it's Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane.
That wasn't for me. That was actually I like that.
That was
and Runaways too, right?
Yeah, he did Runaways.
Yeah.
But this is the
stuff. Did he write Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane?
Yes, he didn't draw it. He did the covers. The covers were great.
These beautiful Mary Jane covers. Yeah. I wanted him to draw that so badly.
But that's not really. I mean, check out the first Strangers pocket book.
Yeah.
Check out the first Echo Trade. Neither of those are going to be a big investment. And if you like it, you'll be along for the ride.
Yeah, totally. And if you go to iFanboy.com, there'll be a post about this episode. You can get links to go find these out on the web, and you can go purchase them or go to your local comic book store, pick them up, or go to Strangers in Paradise's website, which is great, which is where everything is there.
You can email us at contact@iFanboy, or you can call 888-FANBOYS, which is 326-2697.
Yep.
And like you said, go to the website.
You can go to revision3.com/iFanboy, see all of our previous episodes. So.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Well, you bought the Omnibus.
I respect the accomplishment.
Yeah, you like a good collected edition.
It's a seminal piece of comic book work.
Yeah, that's a brick. I carried that all around San Diego.
That's crazy. That's why I had to deliver it.
They gave it to you in a bag. That's how heavy it was.
You think
like
he
a
waves
bag.
it around to Jeff Smith like, oh yeah, I got your one volume right here, bitch.
They probably do. They share booth space.
Yeah.
So.
You could have it delivered for free at San Diego, or you could pay the extra $25 and have it shipped. And I said $25 is well spent.
Yeah. That was a pain in the butt to bring on the plane.
Because that's like the premium for the doctor bill.
But
He got searched because of it.
I got a beautiful sketch though. So.
Hey, welcome to iFanboy, the comic book discussion show from the website iFanboy.com. We're leaving it in. I'm
do it again.
No.